Hey guys, Cam here from PhoneDog.com, and I have had this bad boy for just about a week now. I've had enough time to gather my thoughts and to bring you a full review of the Sony Xperia Z3. And I guess the biggest question for me when this came out was, is this going to be the device that finally ends the stigma that Sony can't sell smartphones? Despite the fact that they've created some great phones in the past, they've never seemingly matched that quality with sales numbers. Will they be able to do it with the Z3? Now, Sony has made one of the best looking devices on the market. The Obsidian black dark glass on the front and back is only divided by the dark grey smooth and curved metal edges. And while previous Xperia devices felt big and blocky, the Z3 manages to fool your senses into believing the lie that it's much smaller than any of its predecessors. And that's despite the fact that barely a millimeter's been shaved off between this and the Z2 from the width and the thickness. But this design does have its downsides. It's possibly the most slippery phone I've used since the iPhone 4 and iPhone 4S. It even tried to slip out of shot when I was filming shots for this review. That said, it's elegant and beautiful, particularly in black. And Sony's come up with a clever way of inserting the necessary plastic into the metal frame by adding colour-coded plastic corners, instead of the usual plastic bands that you see on other devices. The power and volume buttons are conveniently placed for the right thumb or left index finger if you reach around the back. Having a camera shutter button is awesome, and I like the new more subtle plastic flaps that cover the charging port, the SIM and the SD card slots. There's just lots of refinement here. It looks a lot classier than the big chunky rectangular flaps that you had on other devices before. For the first time, I guess the Sony Xperia device looks like a serious smartphone for the style-conscious consumer. Now we get on to the display. It's a 5.2-inch 1080p display, but so was the previous version, except this one is different. It's bright and colourful. Two words I've not really used to describe an Xperia Z display before. They've changed the display hardware. It's brighter than before, and that in turn gives the colours a lot more life. Content seems closer to the surface too. Viewing angles are great, the whites are good, there's no real massive tinting in terms of pink or blue tints on the white, and even if there is, it does have a built-in white balance compensator in the software, so you can change that. Sony claims that this is its brightest and most vivid display, and it is. Even bright daylight performance is good. It's a massive upgrade on the previous version of the Xperia Z line. For the first time, Sony has one of the best displays on the market. Its display is no longer a weak point. And then we get onto the camera. 20.7 megapixels means that you can take some big and sharp pictures, but the best ones are taken when you tone it down to 8 megapixels, and it doesn't matter seemingly if you use 16:9 or 4:3 ratio. It has tons and tons of really cool and really fun features just like the previous versions had. Now I do have a complaint about the camera performance, but only about its intelligent auto mode. It seems to boost the exposure, leaving you with less detail, contrast and colour, but if you switch it to manual and downtone the exposure just a slight bit, this does improve. You end up with really sharp images with good colour, good detail, good contrast, but it's just a shame you can't achieve these with the automatic mode that most people are probably going to use. You can record in 4K video, and although the quality is decent, actually using it is a little bit frustrating. The camera struggles to autofocus during recording, and it does overexpose again. Again, it could be a software issue, but I did notice in both still photography and video recording that it struggles when you're trying to focus on something that's close up. Sometimes it just wouldn't bother focusing at all. So although you can get fantastic results from the camera, it's not the best experience I've had, and in fact, I would actually rather use the Z2 for camera. Sony's advertising of the Z3 promises 2-day use, but my big question was whether or not it would deliver. With the Z2 before this, I'd regularly get 2 days out of a full charge. But because the Z3 has a lower capacity battery, it has more power and a brighter display, I was doubtful that we'd get the same from the Z3. But the 3100 mAh battery delivers. It's really fantastic. One full charge gets me through 2 days of light use. Heavy users should easily get through a full day unless they spend a solid 6 hours playing highly intense graphical games. And it seems the 2.5 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 801 series processor does its job really well. Everything seems really snappy, whether I'm switching between apps or launching different ones quickly, or just trying to load content on the screen. I didn't really notice any major lag or stuttering like I did a little bit with the Z2. It's particularly zippy once I downloaded and installed Google's Now launcher from the Play Store. So on the performance side, in short, it performs fantastically well, it's fast and fluid, and the battery lasts for 2 days. You can't really argue with that in today's market. And perhaps one of the weak points of previous versions of the Xperia Z was the loudspeaker quality. I remember using stereo speakers before on the previous model where I'd struggle to get notifications. But the stereo speakers on the Z3 seem much louder. Their quality and the tone and the balance may not be as good as HTC's boom sound on the One M8, but they're very close second. The Walkman app also lets you adjust the balance. It has a whole range of presets for specific headphones, including the awesome digital noise cancelling ones we got in the last model of Xperia, but you can change it to match the earphones you get in the box. So it doesn't seem to matter which earphones you use or headphones you use, you can get a tone and a balance that works perfectly for that set of headphones. So the audio experience is one of the best on the market. Sony has really nailed this multimedia device. Now my biggest issues are probably with the software. And no, I don't really have a major problem with the installed apps and the bloatware because you can easily remove the widgets off the screen that come with it and you don't have to use the apps, you can easily ignore them. My issue is with the software buttons and status bar. With a lot of apps, they take up so much room that it leaves the content on the screen looking really cramped. But there is one really cool knockout software feature. Sadly, I wasn't able to test because I don't have a PS4. Now, PS Remote Play lets you use your phone and a PS4 controller to play games from your PS4. Now, if you're a PS4 owner and you're looking for a smartphone that best fits into your ecosystem, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything better than the Xperia Z3. Now, Sony may have taken a few years of incremental updates to reach a point where they've released a fantastic phone, but the wait has been worth it. The Z3 doesn't really have any major flaws. There's no real weak points in the device in terms of hardware. It looks great, it has an amazing display, it's got a fantastic camera, it performs really well, it's got brilliant battery life. It's really hard to fault it, and on top of that it's waterproof and dustproof, so it can handle life. Although you haven't got a removable battery, you can expand the storage up to 128GB using a micro SD card. Simply put, this is a fantastic phone.